Welcome all, and thank you for joining the 35th episode of Husky Dash. I hope you all have had a great day so far, and I'm your host, Nathan Mathisen, and today I'm going to be starting off the show by talking about what took place at the spring game this past Saturday, and then I'll dive into the four Huskies that were drafted in the NFL draft this over the weekend. I'll then close out the show talking about Husky basketball and what's going on with them. Now, hopping right into the first segment of the day, which is the spring football game. Over the weekend, the Huskies had their annual spring football game. Of course, they didn't have last year due to COVID. And now, in recent history, this spring football game really was just a practice with a little bit more of offense versus defense live action at the end of it. But of course, with Jimmy Lake kind of wanting to hype up the program after not having fans for a year, he went all in. He had an actual spring football game, four quarters, full contact, besides, of course, the quarterbacks. And it was exciting. I think they sold 9,000 tickets. I don't know if there were 9,000 people there, but there was a decent amount. So Jimmy Lake got the fans there. And that's really what Jimmy Lake's been doing recently, and that's why he's kind of grown on me. He's really been trying to hype up the program, I think, really get some noise around, get some buzz generated, get the Huskies back on the national stage. And as really, I think Chris Peterson was someone who he didn't really care too much about fan excitement, maybe. I mean, he did, of course, but he was more business type. Well, Lake is a energetic, younger coach who players love. He's hyping him up all the time. And he's grown on me as well. At first, I didn't know how well I'd like the Jimmy Lake hire as it seemed a little forced, but going into this upcoming season, he's grown on me. Now, getting into the actual spring game and what happened, the purple team that was drafted by Cade Otton won. They won 22-13, and they were led by their QBs, Dylan Morris and Camden Sermon. Now, looking at the highlights for each team, looking at the purple team, probably their highlight of the spring game was in the first quarter, Cade Otton's one-handed touchdown catch. Overall, Dylan Morris threw him a nice ball considering the circumstances. And the circumstances, of course, was that it was some of the worst blocking I'd seen by Nate Kalepo at left guard. Really, Kalepo had a guy on his outside shoulder and inside shoulder, and he didn't block either one. He basically let him go by him instantly. It must have been a miscommunication of some sorts, but Dylan Morris was immediately under pressure, backpedaling, and had to offload the ball quickly. Luckily, Cade Otton was running kind of a 5-yard in route, and he turned around quickly, and Dylan Morris got it to a spot where Cade Otton was able to get his hand on it and pull it into his body for the touchdown. Now, looking at the gold team, the best play of their day, I believe, in my opinion, was probably Richard Newton's 15-yard touchdown run. And what I saw in that touchdown run really showed me what I've been thinking, and that's that Richard Newton is the best running back in that running back room. He's got the most diverse running capability. He's got power. He's got elusiveness. He's quick enough to get around on the edge. And overall, he's just the best back in the backfield there for the Huskies. But getting back to the specific play that I was referencing, the 15-yard touchdown run, on that run, it was right up the middle, and he broke 4 or 5 tackles getting there. And he showed his elusiveness more on that versus power, as it was his quick cut ability that managed to evade those tacklers, not his power. But overall, that was kind of the highlight for the running game, as the Huskies' running game struggled in the spring practice, I feel. It was kind of non-existent at times. Really, both offenses actually struggled as a whole at times. And I think that speaks, or at least I want to think that speaks more towards the Huskies' great defense versus a poor offense. As all Husky fans know that the Huskies have a great defense for the past 10 years they've kind of had this great defense. And again, this upcoming season, it looks like they're going to have another great defense. However, these past couple years, the caveat in this great defense was always, well, they're not the best against the run. As this past year in those 4 games they played, they gave up 4.5 yards per carry, 161.3 yards per game. And in a couple of those games, they gave up 200 plus. So overall, their run defense kind of struggled. I don't remember the exact rankings. It was about middle of the pack, sixth. I think they were maybe sixth for yards per carry and then seventh for yards per game in the Pac-12. But overall, you want to see the Huskies more in that top tier in those rankings on defense, as they're supposed to have a good defense. But with this spring game showing of not the best run game, maybe the Huskies' rush defense has simply improved. They really haven't added anyone new or lost anyone that was key in that front seven stopping the run last year. Yeah, ZTF wasn't there. He's out for the year probably, but he wasn't much of a run defender, in my opinion, last year. He was more of a sack guy. So overall, just bringing back the same players and having them take that step in spring practice, take that step over the summer, they could be a really good run defense, which then would mean they're just a solid all-around top defense in the Pac-12 possibly. Now, another thing that I noticed at spring practice was how Taj Davis was kind of the QB's favorite target for a lot of the practice. He had a number of balls thrown his way, and he had a couple of nice catches. He also had a few missed opportunities. Kind of all throughout spring practice, his name's been thrown around as someone who's really surprised and really shown a lot of effort out there and really improved a lot and earned his reps and earned his snaps that he's going to be getting in the 2021 season. Overall, though, the wide receiver room is just so deep. It's probably the deepest the Huskies have had for a long time. I mean, you've got guys like Terrell Bynum, Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, Sawyer Racanelli. You got Taj Davis, of course, and then you can't forget about the Michigan transfer, Giles Jackson, who is going to be joining the team over the summer. So it's really going to be tough for these guys to get their reps, but they're all capable, so it could be a good thing for the Huskies overall. All right, now getting into the next segment, which is talking about the NFL Huskies. So the Huskies, as everyone thought, had four players that went in the draft this past weekend. And like most people thought, the pass rushers went first. Joe Tryon specifically went first, as he went 32nd overall to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the reigning Super Bowl champions. And then Levi Rike, who was another guy kind of paired up with Joe Tryon, as maybe they slip in the late first, but more likely early second, and that's where he went. Levi went pick 41 to the Detroit Lions on day 2. And then getting into the defensive backs, unfortunately for them, they fell farther than I thought they would. There was always the chance that they'd fall based off of different reasons for each of them. But I was especially shocked with how far Molden actually fell, as Molden is a guy who I look at based off purely numbers is a first-round talent. Now, of course, you can't just look at numbers, as there's more to a player than just numbers. And when you look at the other things on Molden, his size, it's not ideal. It kind of limits him to just that nickel corner position, maybe the safety position as well. And then you look at his athleticism, his numbers that he displayed at his pro day weren't the best. Now, he had a hamstring injury, which calculated into that, but overall, that probably is the reason for his fall, his size plus his poor pro day showing in numbers. And in the end, Molden slid all the way to the 3rd round, pick 100 to the Titans. And then Keith Taylor was the last Husky drafted. He was someone who also was looked at as maybe 2nd, 3rd round at some point. And that was just kind of based off of a hype that grew around him around the Senior Bowl, as he had a great Senior Bowl showing. But in the end, his spotty 4-year game tape at Washington, where he had 0 interceptions, only 10 pass breakups, I think it was, caught up to him, and he ended up going 5th round, pick 166 to the Panthers. So transitioning back into how each of these players fit with their teams, I'll start back with Joe Tryon and the Buccaneers. And I think this is the best possible place for Tryon to have went. Tryon is a very raw prospect, in my opinion. He's a guy who really only had one good year in college, and that was 2019. Sat out last year. But Tryon is someone who has the potential. He is 6'5", 265 pounds or 260 pounds. Actually runs a 4.65. Very athletic. He can be a very good speed rusher. I think he's also got good power coming off the edge. And he's a guy with upside. That's what type of pick this was, I think, an upside pick. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were afforded that. A lot of teams aren't. The Buccaneers in the offseason re-signed, I believe, every single one of their players. And they look at it like, okay, we got the team back. They won the Super Bowl. Let's go back and do it again. Let's run it back. So let's just draft someone who in the future can make an impact for us. We don't need him right now. We have these great guys on the defensive line because that's what the Buccaneers have. They have great outside linebackers and D linemen. At the outside linebacker position where Tryon's going to be playing, Buccaneers have JPP and Shaq Barrett, 2 of the premier pass rushers in the league. And Tryon is lucky because he's going to be getting to learn behind those guys. He likely won't play too much his first year. He'll probably play rotation, maybe if those guys give them a break for like a couple series or a series every game, maybe. But overall, Tryon went to a great spot. He went to a spot where he can learn behind some of the best in the game. Next up, we've got Levi Rike, where he's in a situation as well where he probably won't play a ton to start off his career for Detroit, but he will play a decent amount. I mean, he plays interior defensive line, which that's somewhere that, depending on the system, it'll have a lot of rotation with those big guys kind of needing a breather more often, as they're big guys. They need a break every once in a while. So Levi's probably going to get in the rotation as a rookie, get his snaps in. Hopefully he'll learn behind some of these really good players the Lions have in Michael Brockers and Trey Flowers on the D-line, improve as the season goes on, and eventually carve out his role as a starter maybe by next year. Next up for Husky players drafted is Elijah Molden. And there might be some bias here, there probably is, but in my opinion, I think you look at this draft 5 years down the line, Elijah Molden is going to be the steal of the draft at pick 100. I mean, heck, you look at it like Elijah Molden from day one, I think, is going to be the Tennessee Titans starting nickelback corner. And that's for a couple of reasons. One of those reasons is just Molden is pro ready. I mean, you saw him in college. He played great. He showed that he can play it with the best. I think when he gets to the NFL, he's going to show it again. He is technically sound. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not the tallest guy, but he knows how to play football. And then the second reason I think he'll be a starter day one is simply the Tennessee Titans are very thin at the cornerback position, especially the nickel position. I mean, the Titans drafted another corner round 1. I think it was Caleb McFarley, and he's going to be the starting outside corner, I'd say. So the Titans don't have much premier talent at the corner position. So I think Molden is going to be thrown in there. And he's in a great spot. He's being coached by Mike Vrabel and getting that real shot at starting from day one. Rookies in the NFL, there's in really any sport, kind of 2 routes for them to take. They can be thrown into the fire, basically. They might struggle mightily at first, but hopefully they learn from their mistakes and they can develop and then evolve into a great starter. Another Husky did that, Byron Murphy. He was second round pick as well. He was, or Molden was third round, but he was day two pick. He was day two pick 33 for Byron Murphy for the Cardinals. And because of injuries, he got thrown in. He actually started the outside corner when he was originally nickel, but as the season progressed, he got better and better. Now in his third year, he's a pretty good nickel corner. So hopefully Molden can do that and evolve. He might struggle mightily in the first couple of games, but by week 8, 9, 10, more comfortable with the NFL speed and can start showing people why he should have been a higher pick. Now, Keith Taylor will probably be taking the second road, which is you sit behind the veterans, you learn as much as you can, and then when you're ready, you get in there and you show the coaches what you're able to do. Keith Taylor will do that as he'll probably be the fourth or fifth corner on the Panthers roster. And he'll probably be playing a lot of special teams early on for the Panthers and have to earn his reps on defense, which, I mean, yeah. Now, the Panthers drafted him and they drafted him for a reason. They clearly liked him. And the Panthers kind of actually had more of a connection to him than some people might think, as Matt Rule was a coach at the Senior Bowl, which that's where Keith Taylor kind of jumped onto more the national level or kind of got talked about more. When he was at Washington, Taylor never really had that large impact, never really got talked about too much. I mentioned it before how 0 interceptions. So he's not going to be getting on these highlight reels when you don't have any interceptions, but he had great coverage percentage rates for pass breakups and just not allowing many completions. But overall, Taylor's going to be a special teams guy probably to start maybe. And then eventually he'll get up to a part where he's playing in the rotation at the corner position for the Panthers. And overall, it's just going to be fun watching these guys and see what they can do at the next level. All right, so getting into the final topic of the day, which is just talking about what's happening with Husky basketball. It has been a while since I talked about them, and they've had some new players. And as everyone knows, of course, Husky basketball team had a very rough past season. They struggled throughout the year. And then as the offseason started, it wasn't the smoothest. They were hit very hard with transfers. And at one point, I believe they only had about 4 scholarship players left. That was Riley Sorn, Jamal Bay, Nate Roberts, and Cole Bachema. Everyone else transferred. They abandoned ship. But things were looking bleak, and now they've had some more transfers coming to them. So they lost a bunch of people, and now they're getting people to come to them. And it really came in, I think, 2 waves, kind of. So the first of those waves were Jackson Grant, Samuel Ribby, and then Terrell Brown Jr. And then starting off just with talking about Brown. Brown, of course, was the transfer from Arizona. Huskies played him. He didn't play well against the Huskies. I think last time he played the Huskies, he went 1 for 11, I believe it was. So Huskies must have seen something in the first game or throughout the other film, because playing the Huskies, he didn't look good. Now, Terrell Brown, he started his career at Seattle University. He's a local kid. He had a great sophomore year at CLU and decided to head to Pac-12 and head to Arizona. It didn't work out, and now he's coming back to Washington. He, though, is someone who I think could be a core contributor for the Huskies, maybe a starter, maybe more of a sixth man type role. But overall, I think he is going to be in the rotation easily and a key scorer for the Huskies. Another guy the Huskies got was Samuel Ribby. And unlike Terrell Brown, he is not going to be a day one rotational starter or really even a contributor on the court in probably year 1 at all, as he's a long-term project. Samuel is coming from the NBA Academy Africa, and he's a guy that fits what the Huskies want to do. He's a guy that is a prototypical 2-3 Syracuse defense player. He is 6'7", I believe it is, but he's got, I think I saw, or no, he's 6'9" with 6'11" wingspan. He is 190 pounds, so not the biggest, but he'll definitely have to bulk up, and he's capable of doing that. He's got good muscle definition. It's just about turning that lean muscle into more bulk and kind of ideally, I would say he'd want to be up to 210 pounds by his second year here at UW. And with his length, though, that he already has with that long wingspan playing at the 3-4 position likely, he'll be able to cause havoc, getting in the passing lanes, getting steals, leading fast breaks, and overall being a great defensive player. What holds him, he can probably do that immediately. You throw him out there his freshman year, he'll be able to get steals. He'll be able to get his hand on the ball on the defensive end. The thing that holds him back is his offense isn't fully developed to the college level from what I've seen or from what I've read. There's not too many videos of him out there, but overall, he'll probably have to work on his offensive game coming from the NBA Academy Africa. And if he can do that, develop his offense to a consistent 30 or 35% from three, maybe a little bit of a decent jump shot, then he could be a great player. He could be a Matisse Thybulle type. He's a very raw talent. It's just going to be about the coaches coaching him up and helping him reach his potential. Then, of course, the next guy in that wave one was the first guy. He was the guy who'd been committed to UW since last year's actual season in Jackson Grant. And he's someone who can come in and make an immediate impact, I think. I'm not a huge fan of him. He's a 4-star recruit, 6'9" and 205 pounds. The 205 pounds thing is the thing that catches me up is he's listed as center. And I think at 205, he might have to play more of a power forward. I know the college and NBA games getting less big man, but still at 6'9", 205, that's short for center and light for center. So he might struggle if he's going up against a true center in the Pac-12 and be a liability on the defensive end. So if he can bulk up as well a bit, he could definitely be someone who could be a rotational piece from day one coming off the bench. Now, overall, the first three new members of the team are solid pieces, couple key contributors. But the second wave is where I think there's some guys who have the potential to do some great things here at UW. The second wave then, of course, brought with them the very exciting assistant coach hire of Quincy Pondexer, former Husky basketball player. He played here from 2006 to 2010, and then he was in the NBA from after that until I think the 2018-2019 season was his last year. So he brings with him NBA knowledge, which is always key coming to college coaching. And especially this is Pondexter's first coaching gig. So he's kind of new to this, but what he is going to bring with him is definitely the drawing players in, getting them to come here. Well, he's not a former local high school player. He is someone who played at UW. He then went on to the NBA. He did what all these players want to do. They want to play in college and then get to the NBA. He did that, and he did that recently. So he's someone that players might like to listen to, learn from, and play for. Now, as for the players in that wave, we've got Emmett Matthews Jr., who is a Tacoma native, spent the past 3 years at West Virginia, where he started 25 of the games last year when they were the 3 seed, I think, in this past tournament. And he didn't have the largest impact, really. He averaged 8 points per game, 4 rebounds. He's not the best 3-point shooter. He's not the worst. Shot about 30%. And he's more of a slasher from what I read on him. He's also just an average defender, doesn't have the best wingspan, 6'7". He's someone who needs to take the next step. That was something at West Virginia which might be why he transferred, as he was never able to take that next step. Each year, he kind of got more playing time. However, he didn't really improve his numbers each year. They kind of stayed about the same. That's something to look for with him is, can he take that next step? Can he get over that hump and find his potential? If he can, then Huskies have a really good player on their hands. Even with what he's at right now, he's going to be a rotational player, but he has the potential to be the starter and star for the Huskies. Now, the next transfer the Huskies got is really interesting. Just reading a little bit on him, I like him. He's a JUCO player at Langston Wilson. He was the number 2 ranked JUCO player in the class. He was originally committed to Alabama. He decommitted when they had a couple more players commit to them, and he felt he wouldn't get as much of a role. So he then decided to commit to UW. And the interesting story or unique story behind it is, at a young age, Langston was diagnosed with this syndrome called Marfan syndrome, which it basically means you just have extremely long limbs, long fingers. And then with that, of course, that leads to heart and an increased risk for cardiac problems. So from a young age, he was told you can't play in any competitive type sports. And in high school, he wasn't even allowed to play on his basketball team. However, when he turned 18, he got cleared for that. And he sent a highlight tape of him playing pickup basketball to some coaches. And the coach at Georgia Highlands liked what he saw, and that's where he ended up playing for the last 2 years. Now he's transferred to Division One, and he at Georgia Highlands he showed some skill. I think he averaged about 11 points, 8 rebounds per game. Very athletic, very lengthy, as you would infer from the Marfan syndrome. He's got very long legs, very long arms. He loves to use the 2-hand windmill dunk. And then he also has a decent 3-point shot. Well, not decent, but just a reliable one that, well, not reliable actually, just one that makes the defense not sag off too far. It was 30%, I think. So he's someone who can come in and I think make an impact. He's going to be, I think, a fan favorite with his electric athleticism. Now, the most recent transfer was from yesterday or 2 days ago. It was Dejon Davis from Stanford. Davis is 6'3", 190, averaged 11 points, 3 boards, 3 assists at Stanford last year. Just the 1 year he averaged that. He played a lot. I think I saw he started 99 of the 104 games he played for Stanford. So he's a guy with a lot of college experience, which will be good for UW. And he's also a local kid. He went to Garfield High School with Jalen Noel. He'd originally committed to UW with Jalen. And then when Romar, of course, got fired, he reopened his commitment and ended up going to Stanford. So the Huskies finally got him after 4 years. And Davis is a guy who is a great defender. He was, I saw, the 7th, I think, in Stanford history on their steals all time. So great defender. Hopefully he can fit in with the zone defense, as he doesn't have the best size. But hopefully his defensive mindset and defensive capabilities can just mesh well with the rest of the Huskies out there. Overall, this team looks like they could be better than they were last year, or they could be worse. It's really just going to depend on how quickly they can mesh as a team and how well a lot of these new pieces will integrate with one another. As you know, as I talked about, they have a whole lot of new pieces with just 4 really returning guys. And now, unfortunately, that is all the time I have for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Again, I'm Nathan Mathisen. You can follow me on Twitter with the @ that you see on the screen right now. Now, I am just a small part of the Dash Sports family. If you'd like to meet the rest of the crew, check out our website, dashsports.tv. That's where you can go to find as many quips, clips, tips, rips, terrible jokes, and as many full episodes as you can stand. All in one place, all for free, dashsports.tv. Thank you for joining me today. Have a wonderful rest of your night. This is Husky Dash signing off. Thank you.